Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asad Yaqub and I welcome you all from Lahore, Pakistan. I'm an IELTS trainer from Lahore, Pakistan, and I teach IELTS here and all over the world as well. Anyways, in this video, I'm going to teach you about IELTS speaking part 3, and the title of the video suggests 8 bands in IELTS speaking. So definitely, if you're going to follow all these tips and techniques, you can end up getting 8 bands. It depends on your English. The first thing is your English, and then my tips. If your English is good, my tips are already good, and at the end you'll be able to get a very good band score in IELTS speaking. IELTS speaking part 3 is called discussion, and in this part the examiner is going to ask you the questions which are related to the topic of speaking part 2. Now, for example, if in speaking part 2 the topic was describe a book, in part 3 the examiner might ask you questions about the reading habits of the people, and in part 3 they will ask you further questions. So actually part 3 is the follow-up of IELTS speaking part 2. Most of the time, whatever the topic they select in part 2, in part 3 they will ask you questions from there. Now what you need to do, I'll tell you a few things and you got to follow that. In part 3, usually the questions are long. So the first thing is you need to understand the question, because in part 3 usually misunderstanding takes place by the students. This happens that at times misunderstanding takes place because the question is very long and you try to concentrate one part of the question. When you reach the last part, you forget the first part. So if you do not understand the question, you can ask the examiner, excuse me, can you repeat the question? And then the examiner is going to repeat the question for you. And if you don't understand, don't answer the question, because in part 3 it's very sensitive. If the question is this and your answer is something else, if the question is 1 and your answer is 5 or like that, then you will not be able to get good band score. So part 3 is very sensitive one. Understand the question and then answer the question accordingly, because it's called discussion. Now what happens in part 3, the examiner will ask you questions and you got to listen, understand and answer in the same tense in which the question is. In part 3, the examiner will ask you for comparisons. So you need to prepare for comparison. You need to know the language of comparison. You can compare two things simultaneously. You can compare present with past. They might ask you for that. They might ask you to compare present with future, and you need to forecast as well. They might ask you to predict about something and what will happen in the future. For example, what's the role of technology nowadays in your country? How was it 20 years ago? And then you say 20 years ago technology was this, technology had this role, and now, and then you say what role do you think the technology will play in the next 25 years? Now this is what you need to speculate about the future. So the examiner is going to twist you by asking one question about present, one question about past and present comparison, one question about the comparison of present and future, past, present, comparison, this, that and all that. So you got to be active and alert for part 3. Again, do not answer any question if you do not understand. Ask the examiner to repeat the question and then start your answer from the topic of the question, so that examiner knows that you are answering that question. As far as your answer is concerned, in speaking part 3, try to give an answer that lasts for around half minute, minimum half minute, right? Because you know that is called discussion. In discussion, you need to elaborate the points, you need to discuss certain things, and for that you need time. So in part 3, your answers should go on up to half minute. That's important. Let's go through some of the questions which might be asked in IELTS speaking part 3. In part 2, the topic was describe a house or apartment that someone you know lives in, and then you should say who the person is who lives there actually, what sort of house is that, why do you like it, and all that. In part 3 discussion, the questions are going to be like what kinds of home are most popular in your country. Now you'll say in my country the most popular types of home or type of home is actually the homes with lawn, because people require lawn, and then there should be a car parking or a car garage. That is also very important. So like that, okay, or apartments. Then the question is What do you think are the advantages of living in a house rather than an apartment? Now you got to answer the question, what are the advantages of living in a house rather than apartment? Now for example, if you live in a house, what are the advantages? If you live in an apartment, what are the advantages? So there are two topics, and all you need to do, you need to compare. This answer needs comparison. And did you notice one thing? The question is such a long one. What do you think are the advantages of living in a house rather than an apartment? And sometimes, you know what happens in part 3? The examiner reads all the question, and at the end you are blank. You don't know what the question was, because it's difficult to retain such a long question. So be alert, be active, look at the examiner and try to pick the question from the examiner. Next question is, do you think that everyone would like to live in a larger home? Everyone would like to live. Now you say, yes, I think everyone would like to live in a larger home, because the dream home for everybody is a large house. So if people are provided this opportunity to live in a larger home, they would love to live, because a larger home brings a lot of facilities. If you've got a large house, you can enjoy the lawn, you can enjoy the patio, open area, swimming pool, things like that you can add, and you can answer the question. Okay, right. The next question is, how easy is it to find a place to live in your country? Now see the topic in part 2, and in part 3 they are asking question, how easy is it to find a place to live in your country? Present tense, you'll say it's very difficult to find a place to live in my country, because in my country a lot of people have come from other countries as well, and because of that there's a lot of population and the land is going to be scarce, so it's difficult for the people to find place to live in my country. Do you think it's better to rent or to buy a place to live in? Now you can say, well, I think it's better to buy a place to live in, because when you buy a place, that is your own place and you are the owner of that place. Nobody can displace you from there. On the other hand, if you live in a rented house, you got to leave that house after a couple of years, and you got to pay rent every month, which is very difficult, like that. Okay, I mean, what I'm saying, you can say even differently, you can talk differently, but you need to answer the question. Do you agree that there is a right age for young adults to stop living with their parents? Now you can say yes, I think, or no, I don't think so. You might have noticed one thing, that in IELTS speaking part 3, the questions are going to be related to past, present, future. Then there can be a comparison, there can be contrast, there can be the comparison of two things, present, past, future, how it was, how will it be, what will happen, how was it, and all that stuff. So you need to be prepared for that, and once you are prepared for that, then you can answer the questions. Thank you very much. That's all. I teach IELTS online. If you want to join my online IELTS classes, you can join me on Skype or WhatsApp. These are the private coaching classes which I give, and I also conduct IELTS workshops, seminars anywhere in the world. If you want my services, you can invite me for 1-day workshop, 1-week training on IELTS, or 1-month course on IELTS. I'm available for that as well. And I've created this course on IELTS. It's called Easy IELTS Kit. It's got books, 4 books and 8 DVDs, and I teach IELTS in these DVDs with the help of books, and there are some practice tests as well, so it's not very expensive. If you want to buy it, you can get it actually. Asad Yaqub wishes you all the best, and I wish you 8+ bands in speaking. Follow all these tips after following, and you can follow the tips while taking the practice tests on speaking. Try to take practice tests on speaking. Once you do that, and in your actual exam, you'll be getting 8 bands if your language is good and you follow my tips appropriately. Thank you very much. I wish you a fantastic band score. Take care. Bye-bye.